Grown man shit. Episode 8. Actually, I was talking to a female friend of mine, and she's like, "You have a park?" She saw the setup, and she's like, "What is it called?" And I told her the name. That's so cute. Call our grown man shit.
Yeah.
But maybe we need to change the name for put more emphasis. Grown man shit. Okay. But welcome. We're gonna be discussing the marketing of the masculine. That's nice. The marketing of the masculine, if you want to even call it the masculine. But the marketing of men. The marketing of males. There we go. Finally got it right. Because they're neither men nor masculine. The way they be looking on them covers. So, what inspired this was, so Lewis was getting some diapers, right?
You asked me to, man. I got them for you.
I'm only doing this because you had jokes the other day. I was like, okay, say less. But no, I was in Kroger and we just happened to, I think it was centered around something we were discussing. It wasn't just a random picture. Oh, check this out. But something we were discussing was somewhat relevant to what I saw, and I remember putting it in the group chat of this guy in a diaper. And it wasn't just the diaper in and of itself, because if you need a diaper, you need a diaper. But it was the contrast or lack thereof of the woman and the male one next to each other, and they had the same hand on hip pose, and I was like, they could have had bro folding his hands, you know what I mean? It's bad enough he has to wear a diaper, but you also have your hand on your hip.
You could have looked like a man with a diaper.
Right. And so that statement right there would probably be a good transition, which is, I think this fundamentally all comes down to someone thinking, what do you mean look like a man? There is no such thing, right? And so that's where this fundamental battle, if you want to call it that, lies. There is no such thing as being a man. What was the hell? I was just having that convo the other day, and this woman was saying to me, because she did spas and massages and stuff. She was like, "Oh, I mean, you and your boys can have a spa day." It's like, no boys have a spa day. Like, why would you think that's our ideal way of bonding? Like, what's wrong with? There's nothing wrong with spa. I'm not saying anything is wrong with spa days. No, but men can have spa days too. Sure, they can. But what makes you think that's an ideal? Like, we want to, man, let's go get our feet done, right? Like, and so it was an interesting convo, and I can see how a lesser man, from understanding himself and from desiring the woman's approval and all these things that will come into somebody agreeing to some shit like that. I can see how they get swayed. A real man would have spa days. I'm sure he would. So if he has spa days but can't handle business, how real is he?
Right.
Right. Which one are you gonna pick? And again, nothing in and of itself. If you get your toes done, it's whatever. But it's I think that moment stood out to me in the. You're really insistent on. It's okay to do women things. Hence the A$AP Rocky cover, right? That's really the narrative. There's no difference. It's okay to look like a woman. It's not really a woman. It just means you're a secure man.
You gotta explain the A$AP Rocky cover.
Oh yeah, the A$AP Rocky. Look up Vogue. I believe it was
Vogue.
March 2023. A$AP Rocky is being guided by Rihanna as they go down the dangerous beach. Fortunately for him, she's, large and in charge, and he doesn't have to be concerned as he ensures that the child is safe. Fortunately, Wonder Woman is there to ensure his protection and, as he nurses the baby to adulthood. So that for me was interesting because, I didn't think it had gotten this far. Right? I mean, it's not even subtle. So it was just, okay, we're just going to be bold about the shit. Like, there's not, it just happened to be, it's like, okay, no.
I feel it's the dangerous part of having so much fluidity is one, the actual experience that takes out polarity. Mm-hmm. Two, when like you're talking to, fundamental things are missing, like anything goes and nothing really matters or means anything. At least that's how it occurs to me. And everything you're pointing to in that cover, there's so much intention. It's beyond a ego or what's possible conversation. Right. It then becomes a complete reversal because in what household, and nothing to their dynamic, but as you said, the way the imagery is placed, Rihanna, I don't know her to be an Amazon type woman, looks a good foot taller than him. Mm-hmm. He's standing behind her, being drifted, guided forward. Like you said, they're on a beach at that.
Right. She's holding his hand, pulling him, and he's holding the baby.
Like, so much of the imagery is so intentional. And would that be their actual family dynamic? Does she want, and I'm not, does she want to feel larger than life, out front, protector? Does Rihanna actually want to have that experience, or women who are taking in that imagery, because it's beyond just the you go girl, you can do. She's a very accomplished, successful woman. There's nothing against that. It's just like the diapers. There's no polarity. There's no missing difference. It's not about roles or putting people in a lane, but it ignores context to what are the actual values, not just what do you feel you want to do or what works. Like, what are you actually undermining in the process of that? Going back to our old videos, like somebody kicks in the door, is ASAP, I got the baby, boo, go handle that. Like, is that how it happens in the house at night if a burglar's coming in? Is that really what is desired or the goal? Mm-hmm. I would say
to your point that there is no longer fluidity. There is a leaning toward the feminine. If you just forget the spectrum of gender and all of that, it's about the diminishing and rejection of masculinity as a whole. Feminine is good, masculine is bad. So in the media, anything that represents feminine, especially a strong feminine, is
you
good.
Mean feminine or what?
Feminine. Feminine energy. Because you have the same thing in the portrayal of the
I can agree with
the transgenders and the biological males dressing as females. They're embracing their femininity. They're embracing their feminine energy. They're rejecting the masculine energy. That's happening across the board, not just in the media, but it's being pushed into our society and into our lives. So when you have pictures of men standing like this or being led by a woman, they're being led by the feminine. They're embracing their feminine. Even when a woman is embracing her masculine, she's doing it as feminine. She's feminine embracing masculine. There's no masculine embracing feminine. There's no man in touch with his emotions as part of our everyday media. You know?
What do you mean by that?
So, how often do we see represented a male, a strong masculine energy, embracing his feminine? It doesn't happen often.
What do you mean? Can you
So, as an example,
because you keep saying masculine, feminine, but sometimes it's not like you're talking about a man. Here you're saying men.
So, men naturally embrace their masculine. That's where that happens at.
Right.
So, traditionally, 100 years ago, before this conversation was being had, anything masculine and men was synonymous, and feminine and females were synonymous.
Right.
Now we're in a world where there's fluidity. In that fluidity, feminine embraces the masculine energy, so that masculine energy that was once held by men is now being embraced by women. Mm-hmm. The feminine energy is not being embraced by men from a media representation perspective. So you have women who are leading men, and and representing their masculine and still representing their femininity. You know, in that Vogue picture, Rihanna still looked feminine.
Right.
You know, whereas the whole image of ASAP was much less masculine. He was smaller.
Right.
You know, he wasn't. All of the masculine features were toned down and airbrushed out.
Right.
You know, he had no gruff. He had nothing that was traditionally you look at and said that's masculine.
Right.
You know, so the masculine is being airbrushed out of men and airbrushed into women. So that's what I mean when I say man. That's why I talk more about masculine and feminine energy than male and female. Because when you're talking about the entire spectrum of things, the LGBT community is part of this whole conversation. You know, because of how they embrace their own individual feminine and masculine energies.
I feel the fluidity has breakdowns inside of there. Because the trans conversation, based on how you feel or what you identify as, is then what you are. So if that's the case, then
so there isn't, and you're right, it is very rigid in that and just to be fair, none of us are in that community, so we're speaking from the outside looking in.
Well, I'm saying even to that, so if the trans community can identify as either or, then it, by definition, lesbian and gay is attracted to a woman, but you just identify as a woman, but are not biologically that. Those two things counter each other, because how can you identify? That's what I'm saying. The fluidity is so much, nothing means anything because it's crossing over and eradicating a part of something that's clear to identify. And if it's so fluid, then it's not just, well, there's biological men, biological women. Beyond that, you can identify as whatever else. That's where things, I think, was it genders and sexes? That conversation has, I don't know, lost its polarity, I guess you could say, to be able to distinguish everything inside of that. And to what we first started on with the imagery, men and women and masculine and feminine energy. The only thing I would say is, I would say the reverse. From the cover of Vogue, what I got was the masculine energy portrayed in Rihanna, the woman, and the feminine energy being portrayed in A$AP Rocky.
I would agree with that. But while the masculine was being portrayed in Rihanna, she still was also portraying feminine.
Oh yeah, legs out.
A$AP was not portraying masculine in that image at all. He was 100% portraying feminine. There was no balance. Rihanna had balance of sorts in her individual image.
Only thing I hear is it crossing over there from because she's wearing a dress, and if it's energetic, it's the energy. A$AP, he's got pants on, and it was not his clothing we wear. He's not wearing a dress. His thighs ain't out. It's the nurturing of the child, the following behind, handout, smaller in stature, everything that for me occurs as more the feminine energy there. And they're wearing, I think, like, what do men wear? What do women wear? They're wearing the appropriate garment. It's the energetic representing that's clearly what they're wearing. There's the feminine in the back, there's the masculine out front.
And I guess there's a difference in feminine and effeminate. He was not effeminate.
In what way?
He wasn't wearing a dress. He didn't have his, even in the way he was holding the baby, there was an effeminate way he was holding the baby, but that's arguable. He did not come off as, I'm trying to be a woman.
Yeah.
So that's the effeminate part of it. But he was definitely being portrayed from a feminine, energetic perspective in how he was being portrayed. He was being protected. He was being the caregiver and nurturer. You know?
I found out he gave birth too. She gets really
But that goes back to the other part too, is that men can never 100% embrace feminine because we can't give birth. Women believe they can 100% embrace masculine.
Is there any imagery of men being masculine outside of, say, sports?
I was going to say, outside of sports and hip hop, you know? Country music too, actually.
Or a cologne commercial.
Even cologne commercials is arguable.
I can see that. But most of the time, it's still dude, shirtless, stoic, and
but not
some
necessarily masculine.
What's interesting, I think of one, and as I think about it, it's not actually on anymore. Dos Equis cat.
Oh yeah,
Old beer, adventures.
That was very much masculine.
That's not even on anymore. I mean, I haven't seen an ad for it in a few years, but I would say that's what I'm pointing to is where in marketing, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about diapers in front of a magazine cover. Athletics are athletics. That's the gridiron. That's like expecting gladiators to be showing
right.
Like it's not going to show up there. Positively portrayed in society for the everyday person. Even when they take off the cleats, shoulder pads, whatever, they're a regular person in society and they walk around every day. To that marketing, where is that marketing for the Dos Equis? Like, what is he, the most unique, most interesting
man in the world?
Like, where is that display of portrayed positive, healthy from what we can tell, masculinity, just grounded, solid masculinity? Where does that show up?
Even the other one that came to mind is the body wash commercial.
Old Spice.
Is it Old Spice? Yeah, the Old Spice body wash commercial where, Terry Crews is arguably a masculine man.
Arguably. Throwing shade.
But no, I'm not throwing shade at Trey. But on his commercials, he's walking around in a bathrobe and he can't keep his woman and his woman's friends from taking his shit.
Oh, that's not the same. That's not. I know what you're talking about. That's a different guy.
Yeah.
That's not Terry Crews. Who is that?
I don't know who that is.
He's a comedian guy.
But I know what you're talking about.
Those
commercials with the
Terry Crews is the one on the horse. That's the funny guy.
That's from Everybody Hates Chris. You remember that? The father from there and White Chicks. But the dude you're talking about, he's not feminine in it, but the woman is always trying to take his. He's always stealing his stuff.
He's always taking his body wash. Right. And the fact that he's fighting over body wash and he can't contain his woman from keeping his body wash, it's the women are empowered and the man is disempowered.
It circles back to that.
My wash.
Yeah, could you please? And could you stop your mommy and your girlfriends from using it too?
It circles back to the subconscious messages, like you said. You can go get a spa day too.
Right.
Yeah.
Because under that is, that's so crazy. Right. Okay. 20 years ago, it was the deodorant strong enough for a man, but made for a woman.
Right.
Now flip it. Old Spice is, it's so good. We want to take the body wash back. Like that's crazy just to look at the underlying communication because, where would you see it strong enough for? Where would you see acknowledging the strength of men in marketing, even if they're saying made for a woman? That imagery, the Dos Equis, I'm getting present to in marketing how these things are shifting just from what we're talking to. I mean, shit is just live. That's the pop culture.
And maybe our listeners that have seen commercials we haven't seen, and they'll pop something out there.
Right.
But
I was like, I'm not
in the comments, but
I'm not the best because I don't watch TV. So, but if I had to think about it, it would be.
Think about the billboards you've seen.
Well, it would depend on what you mean by marketing, or what level of marketing. If we're talking big brand, then it's unlikely, like massive brands. But if you're talking what would you consider a small business, which I think is under 10 million, just a normal. When Dwayne starts marketing, he's not gonna have. All right, guys, come to the mastermind. It's like. I hope.
No, wait. I want to see that. Try that out. Let's Photoshop that. Let's workshop that one.
I hope not. So, there in a small business context, you will see masculine portrayal because people are still. Well, at least we have a few real people left on Earth. It's dwindling, but we still have some there. If you were to see like a random liquor is a little. I mean, it depends on what you think about when you think about masculine. But I've seen some liquor commercials that are I wouldn't say it's necessarily like masculine portrayal, but it's not feminine either. It's not the other way.
It's not. Liquor is not. You're right. I'm thinking of the liquor commercials I've seen, and they tend to be
neutralish.
Neutral, especially beer commercials outside of what Bud Light is going through right now.
What are they going through?
Having a
Bud Light basically. Most people who drink Bud Light are your middle America Trump supporters. Mm-hmm. That's their brand, and it's been their brand for ages. Mm-hmm. During Pride Month, Bud Light said, "Hey, we'll throw a bone to the LGBT community," and they sent a promo to a transgender dude. It wasn't even a big deal, but right wing media is real good at blowing everything out of proportion, so they started a big boycott of Bud Light, and so since that's pretty much their brand that they sell to, their sales tanked.
So the people are associating Bud Light with transgender support or something like that?
Nah, it's not even that people are supporting it. It's that the right-wing snowflakes who get offended by everything, and basically if you represent anything that's not me, then we're going to boycott you. And they don't support the LGBT community. So Bud Light throwing a bone to the LGBT community has now backfired on them because you and I don't drink Bud Light.
What's the difference between that? When you said right wing sense, like when you said that, I was like, well, what's the difference between both extremes? That doesn't sound.
There's not, because the LGBT community doesn't. I mean, they do the same thing with Chick-fil-A.
Right,
which is funny because now Chick-fil-A is on the opposite side too, because the right wing is boycotting them because they did something. They threw the LGBT. So the whole thing is ridiculously stupid radical, from my point of view.
You're radical, whatever direction.
Well, it's not even radical, because
meaning your extreme take down the establishment mindset.
It's not even that you're extreme, because the people I know on both sides who are boycotting it have valid concerns. It's just that the whole Chick-fil-A thing, LGBT community generally does not like Chick-fil-A because the owner was very much pro-Christian, not even right, because this was before Trump. He was just an ultra-Christian conservative. Mm-hmm. And somebody asked him how he felt about gay people, which is like me asking you, do you like women? It's like, what's the point of that question? You know the answer.
Right.
But they did it, got a soundbite, pissed off the LGBT community, they started boycotting it.
This was recent?
No, this was years ago.
Oh, okay.
When he died, now it's a business, they're like, okay, we don't want to be seen as, and we're a business. We want everybody to buy our stuff. Mm-hmm. So they did something pro LGBTQ, which had the ultra right say, "Oh, you can't support them, or we're not going to support you." Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's a long aside of politics in America.
Well, this is slightly off marketing.
Very much.
Well, no,
I mean, it's on marketing, but
I don't mean what you said. I was just thinking what I'm about to say.
Oh.
But I think fundamentally, there has to come a time where it's I wouldn't say it's fuck the consequences and like fuck the consequences no matter what the consequences are, but like individuals are gonna have to get to a point where it's fuck the murmurs that will come from me standing on my square, whether that's you're gay, you're straight, you're a Christian, because we're at a point now in hearing you're saying extreme rights, extreme lefts. That's the convo that'll never end. And I mean, you could say on like just a universal level, it'll never end, right? Mm-hmm. You're gonna always have the extremes, but from like a day-to-day standpoint, we're noticing, the situation Trey was describing earlier, right? It's the fundamental thing with, long story short, I don't know if he caught you up, but long story short, he was accused of something that he wasn't guilty of. and it involved, like a co-worker, train up to know like what,
Right.
So his other co-workers are like, what? Because they know him as well, and the reason that's important, beyond just the silliness of it, is the one-dimensional view of the situation. There is no, perhaps that wasn't the case, because the only reason he fell into that situation is because one person said, this happened. And then it's like, okay, that happened. All right, Trey, come into my office. You know what I mean? It was not a, let's ask and see where everybody else thinks it's, oh, you said this? Say less. You're finished, Trey. And I bring that up because he was saying that there was a part of him, or maybe more than a part of him, that wished he, in that exiting, spoke his truth. But in that fearing the consequences, feelings perhaps, whatever was going through, didn't say anything. I mean, he was reflecting on that. I wish I said something. And I think those moments, I wouldn't even call them man moments in this case, because anybody can do it, are going to have to become more frequent of a thing. Like my convo with the women trying to say, oh yeah, everybody should be able to have spa days. And what was interesting, and again, it's not, the spa day in and of itself is whatever. It's the underlying insistence of, so what if you do feminine things 90% of the time? That doesn't make a difference. That's not true. Dude ventures and gets his feet done once in a while, more power to him.
Bro, get my feet done.
Bro getting his...
I would never invite you to go get my feet done. I've got my feet. I've got pedicures. I ain't got a problem with it.
More power.
It's always been with a girl who's been like, "Hey, I want to get a pedicure. You should come with me." I'm like,
I know, and that's what I'm saying. More power to that guy. What I'm saying is, in and of itself, the thing isn't the issue. It's everything is on a gradient. So if you get your feet done, if you think getting your feet done as often as a woman does not impact how you're perceived by the women themselves, no matter what they tell you, you're sadly mistaken.
You're probably right.
And you're getting your nails done as often or more often than a woman. If you think that does not impact us, you're sadly mistaken. And so there is an element of you visit your feminine, but you said something to this. I always say this, women, and there are a lot of reasons why this is probably the case, but women can venture in and out of the masculine and feminine without too many consequences. Men cannot do that. If you go too far in the other direction, you're finished.
Yep.
You got to move to a different city. Yep. I do mean finished.
Yep, you're done.
Insecure, they had an episode or whatever where the guy had a guy she was dating and found out he had a bisexual experiences on the back.
I was literally about to give an example. One thing women do not like is, viscerally, if a dude has done anything related to anything, and so they are, it's not like I'm not for that. It's like, ugh. It's like a visceral disgust.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll have gay friends all day, but I'll never sleep with a guy who's done anything with another man.
Yep.
So that's
the inverse of that. Women, what is it? GUG? Well, women are cool with it. Women are cool with the whole gay until graduation thing, where they're just women in college who are girlfriends until they graduate. Oh, okay. That's what that whole term comes from. There's a term for it. Nobody thinks twice about it.
But if she heard that,
if it was a dude doing that, it'd be a whole other conversation.
Whoa, she mean dated? We didn't do anything. Whoa, I don't think this is gonna work. You know what I'm saying? And it's, even if she tries to, she can't help her nature, and that does impact how she perceives you. Like, even if you're fucking her, she's just like, you were a bottom. She's like your kid. There's something that your respect just never goes to that level.
What you're speaking to is actually the larger challenge that men have in our society. Women have been taught since the 70s they can do anything a man can do. And that's embodied in our culture now. Women in the 70s are in their 40s now, 40s and 50s now. So they've created a culture of women can do anything. There has been no similar media push of men can do anything, because men can't do anything. So more and more functionality, capabilities are being given to women, and now I'm speaking women, not feminine, but they're being taken away from men. Men can actually do less and less. We can't be too loud. We can't be aggressive. We can't fight. We can't assert ourselves. We can't even protect women the way we want to protect women. You know, all the things that allow us to go out and, you know, make money, provide for our families. Now, women can do all these things, and men can't step into the feminine aspect of it. Because, like, to your point, none of us are in the space of, come on, let's go get a pedicure.
Not natural. That's not,
you know, that's not going to happen. I've never seen a salon that had 3 dudes getting their feet done or their nails done. And actually, that's not true. When I was in New York, getting your nails done was a thing for the Wall Street crowd. Like, you could, after the stock market closed or before the stock market, you were groomed, so you'd sit there and it was clear nail polish and all, but you were getting your nails done and your feet done and whatever else. I don't remember feet, but I remember nails polished and all that kind of stuff.
And if you're to give the nails example or feet example, fundamentally, I always go back to fundamentals when you're trying to find truth, right? Because humans are adaptation machines, so you can find any combination of adaptation. Like, why do we both have both energies, right? Why is that? Why aren't we just pure masculine, women are pure feminine? Because there are times in reality where there might be no men, or there might be no women. You have to be able to. Humans are capable of adapting. So if a society adapts around their environment, in the case of what we have right now, we've said the government or the systems represent the man now, right? So a woman can just call the police, right? So she has that cognitive replacement of a man. When she said
that's what we were talking about last week when about a woman calling the police.
Well, it might have been the week before that, but whichever one, we spoke about that, and they said that it's not a physical man. It's an idea of a man, because it's not. I don't need a man. It's I don't need a partner. I still need a man, because I don't want a woman coming when the fucking house is burning down. If I can pick, they don't want a woman coming. They want a man coming. So it's not. I don't need a man. I can call or purchase the men I need now, rather than I need it to be my boyfriend, husband, a guy. That's really but it's not like I don't need masculine men. This is what we were talking about. I'm not feeling it today. I'm not going in. And the house burns to a crisp, and and that's where that feminine. Going back to the conversation, him going into his feminine in moments of crisis, unacceptable. And anybody who's talking about anything, it can both. And so I say all that to say, with the nail polishing, the more the structures that take on the role of the masculine. So let's say a waltzy crowd. In the most primitive sense, a man used to need his hands. Period. So the concept of doing your nails is not even about like gender roles. It's like functionally that is a waste of time. What you do as a man requires your hands. 9 times out of 10, it's gonna require some dirt, some pulling, and functionally, getting a pedicure, 1 is a waste of money. 2 is a waste of time, and you're just getting them dirty next day.
And that's why for the Wall Street crowd, it became a status sign.
Because they are not, as a society, the making of living moved more and more away from physical labor,
and more into
mental activity, because that's all a business person does. Like unless they're physically cooking or something, it's primarily mental activity. Okay, this person does, and so sales is a mental activity. You're actually you have physical actions, but it's not labor. People conflate work and labor. Like
right.
you can work and you're not laboring. So labor was coming out, like where men are always laboring. And as the labor came out, then they're like, well, I don't do work that requires labor. So I have free reign to
get a manicure.
And da-da-da-da-da. And then get a pedicure. And I can do that now and da-da-da. But that's all just because that's on the backbone of men that are still laboring. Because there are guys that cannot get a pedicure, not because, you know what I'm saying, not because they physically can't get a pedicure, but if the nature of your work makes it a waste of time.
You're working on cars or
it's
farming
like,
or
it's not that you're not they're insecure. It's just
right.
like I work on cars and my hands look like crap 9 times out of 10. That's just some man shit I handle. Nothing more, nothing less. Women's roles typically, because I know men didn't invent getting nails. Right?
No.
Women roles typically, what they would need to do required less labor, like from a hand strength standpoint, so they could have luxuries like beautifying themselves, because that's their value, to beautify, to bring that. You come home and you see a beautiful, that's your value, along with the other things you can provide with the kids and the nurturing. But a man's beautifying himself does not make him more valuable to a woman in and of itself.
The only thing I would say to that is, from a nails perspective, historically, it was a status thing, just like for men. Women had the same thing back in the day. You couldn't really have long nails because you were doing stuff.
You're saying
all of those
accoutrements
accoutrements
once they transitioned into the workforce. You're saying
no, even when they weren't in the quote unquote workforce, the modern day workforce, when they were in the village. They weren't in the village thinking about their nails. But once you reached a point of somebody in the court, then you were able to garnish yourself with certain accoutrements that weren't practical. The impracticalities are what show your status.
Right.
Like, I don't have to worry about my nails because I have status. I can carry all this jewelry around because I have status.
Even though it's impractical for whatever labor would have been there.
I can put all this makeup on my face because I'm not going to sweat it off because of my status.
Right. That makes sense.
And nowadays, we've reached a point in our society where everybody can have status. Or at least look like they have status. And the line of status, I guess, has moved.
Right. Because now most things are purchasable. You know, it's... And we don't really think about it, but all it would take is for you to visit somewhere where it's not purchasable anymore.
Right.
And you really see how coddled like the average American is. Not in like a negative way, but in a... Like you're very close to a domesticated animal. Like take the average Joe, and that's what we're seeing when you're so unmanly now that you're in the background with the baby saying, "Okay, babe, take care, bring home the bread." You know, like when shit flips, I always go back to the fundamentalness of it, and real moments come. She's not trying to hear that.
We are moving ourselves to the lowest common denominator is what's happening. Where men and women will be the same. We move through the world the same. There's no difference. Even from a interpersonal work perspective, where the whole Brave New World idea where everybody gets up to the same, goes to sleep to the same, goes to work to the same, because everything is automated, so there's no real need for manual labor, you know? So we have to move people to a point where they no longer feel they need to do that.
Do it.
Manual labor. They no longer need to be physical. It's being bred out of us.
I think it's just the missing of the masculine representation. Right? We were talking about,
we've talked about this before on the podcast, about what you're talking about, and I think Dwayne responds. I don't know if he's about to say the same thing again. This feels very deja vu, but I believe your response was, it's more about the energetic.
Well, I was actually to what we were talking about earlier. You touched on something where we like a big business or large entity, independent
From a marketing standpoint, right?
If you think about the top masculine expressions, or at least when you think masculine, what comes to mind, whether it's good or bad. Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, David Goggins, Joe Rogan, like you said, on your square, standing for who and what you are. As a marketing standpoint, there's only those independent
massive
expressions.
Right.
It's not on your box. It's not cereal box.
Right.
It's not. And that's to what I hear, where Lewis is saying, the future of something being directed, I would say more or less is there's been such a sway to the feminine and to the woman without a solid grounded presence, at least, to balance out how do you market just a masculine man. And that's okay. Like the healthy aspect, seeing imagery of fathers guiding their sons and daughters, seeing imagery of men doing the protecting, and it's just positively accepted, to even what you were saying, have to be more restricted, nicer to everyone, softer to everyone. It's not necessarily that it doesn't have to be the extremely feminized, it's just so emasculated. And
which is somewhat what we were talking about. Like there's an anti-masculine. It's not quite. It's just like an opposite of the masculine. It's like a darker. I don't know the word, but we said emasculine. It's not, because you could have just said feminine, but it's not exactly that. It's like this warped masculine, or this warped.
Yeah, it's watered down.
Yeah, it's like a weird kind of like a diluted Walmart brand masculine. You know what I mean?
And to what we said, the afterthought of that, where you have to look at if there are systems in place as a society, as a culture, the risk to that, similar, I guess that's where it all starts, say 50, 60 years ago, when there was nothing controlling, then there's almost an anything goes. Without the healthy representation of that energy, it occurs to me the fear or the resistance or holdback, aside from what's acceptable or what the market demands or accepts, is that if you should empower masculine energy and all boys, all young men, the rambunctious, the masculine expression, the assertion, how do you control all of that in a society? You would have factions and representation, not necessarily that it needs to go to revolution or war. There's expression. So whatever is needing to be corrected, adjusted, added into society as a whole is so slow that, land of the free, home of the brave, founded on slaves and less than a whole man, and even 100 years later, the time frame that equality and everything actually balances out for all, it's still nowhere near complete utter freedom with a positive masculine expression and be all the man you can kind of thing. It's not the imagery that's available.
If you think about what the motivation of that, what would the motivation be, right? So let's say they did do something like that. That energy, we're just going to use energy, not even men. It's not as if they're trying to feminize everyone. It's not like they're trying to, just take the masculine out, because you have to think about, why not just try to feminize everybody? Well, even the women. Pump femininity on women too. It's not that. It's pump femininity on men, pump masculinity on women. And the reason for that is, I don't think it's as intentional. I mean, this person or group would have to be a different level of genius to be able to orchestrate all this. But
domino effect.
If there can't not be, because they're principles of the universe, there can't be one without the other. So if we just pumped femininity on everyone, you can't eviscerate something that's fundamental. No human can do that. And so there's going to be correction somehow. So if you pump femininity only, one of them is going to masculinize, if that's, just to give you so since the man is the natural masculine, it's going to just revert back to that 9 times out of 10. But if I feminize the men, if I leave the woman feminine too, it's gonna course correct back just naturally. But if I masculinize the women and feminize the men at the same time, then I can throw things out of loop in a way that, because no matter how, Lewis kind of spoke to this, no matter how masculine a woman gets, she can't be a man. And there's a different level when masculine is surging through a man and masculine surging through a woman. A masculine woman is easier to control than a masculine man. Right? And so that, at the end of the day, and I think Tate was saying something like this in this gist, he's like, you know, a bunch of women get together, even in their masculine, it's annoying, it's inconvenient. A bunch of men get together who are really about it, you start a revolution. Right? So it's a completely different energy. Because they're going to be violent physically, and that's the issue with something like empowering a masculine. Not saying that violence is an issue, because violence is necessary if we're actually trying to change some shit, and it's righteous violence. So I don't know, let's talk it out, really. So if somebody's being violent upon you and you think the solution is to talk it back out with that person, that's not going to end well. And so that kind of conversation is getting removed to where there's no circumstances under which violence is necessary, really. So if somebody's coming, you see some slapping your daughter and shit. No, under no circumstances is violence necessary. You need to talk it out and process your emotions. Really? Okay.
There's a line that I remember from childhood, science fiction, Isaac Asimov. Violence is the last resort of the incompetent, but it's a resort. And
you can't pretend that it's never the case.
Option.
Right.
It's an option.
We're in reality here. Like, if a woman knows you're incapable of violence, she is done. Like, incapable is not an option.
Yeah.
Reluctance, fair enough. Incapable? No.
What you said, that difference in getting men together and getting women together, call it masculine, call it man, whatever, biologically also ingrained is the thousands to millions of years where the men are the sacrifice, especially the masculine energy. Who am I? Who are we? Those revolutions and things, like you say, go to a different level because we will die for this shit. Once we talked about that earlier as well. Like once we're present to it and have that moment, you know, Braveheart, there's a turning point. I'm either going to bow down and I'm no longer, and masculine energy and or men having to experience it, we're just going to bend over and take this. We would rather die. And that's what's been conditioned. The men will go to stand for the values of the tribe. So that's already innate in there. So all it is a catalyst to activate that. And that's what you see when so much feminine is in there neutralizing masculine. There's nothing to stand for. There's no square to be on. As soon as there's a presence or that spark, it can even be the most docile man. That'll bring something in a man to life.
Which is why Tate is so dangerous for who doesn't want him to do that. Because not just because Jordan and Tate have the same outcome in mind, but Jordan's style is like that of an old wise wizard kind of style. Where Tate is like a barbarian. Both are intellectually capable, but the style of delivery. You should get up and dominate. You know, like it's a very, and as you're saying, every man has that spark in him. But if you docile it out, but it's never not there. And it just takes the right circumstance where he's like, man, you know, so am I about to let this thing happen and live with myself after the fact? So case where somebody's slapping his little sister or something is like, I don't know if I can take that guy. My options are let it happen and live with myself, which is the thing men don't like. We can't. A woman is a bit, oh, you know, I don't know why this, not in like a wrong right kind of way, but there's just we're different. So it's like the living with that, living with the man I am, which is going back to the who you are, right? Living with being the man that just observed my sister get slapped up and did nothing and cowered away is worse than death.
Yep.
And so that is masculine to its core. And that is always in a man. He may fold. There are guys who have folded and have to suffer internally because they folded.
Because they made the choice that to not stand or not to run or to do whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
They had
Where it
them
even
up.
gets transmuted, the incel, all the. Oh, we're talking about like having something to die for. If everything is so bad, if the masculine is neutralized so much, has nowhere to go, no
Right.
aim. That's like, who am I? Aimless, here for nothing. So that's why you've got the self-deletion. That's why you got the, find something skewed or perverse to die for, and then you got a mass shooting happening. Like, there's no war to go fight. There's no real cause to be behind.
Right.
It's just, well, fuck it. And that's also the difference in that is, there's something to die for is a masculine expression because it's on behalf of the wife and kids, the village, somebody back home. I'll do this for, I'll sacrifice for. Incel, self-deletion, shootings, none of that is about
anyone else. Yeah.
exactly. It's
It's
just
about
how that person feels.
Right.
So
I
everybody.
feel unvalidated. I'm gonna kill you
I
all.
feel disrespected. I feel scared.
All of it. And going back full circle with that, with the balancing of the energies, why is it marketed? One, the motivation is what y'all are saying. We all know fundamentally, and I was saying to Dwayne, I think, if Tate's is correct about, a group of individuals likely trying to get rid of him, which is, if the marketing can exist, if it was coincidental, that'd be different. But there's an intentional masculinization of women and an intentional feminization of men. So it's not choice, it's not chance, because if it was, then we'd see commercials that go both ways often enough if it's just at least 50-50. But we cannot think of
There's
any
no
examples.
balance. Right.
Everything we talk about is different.
And the reason for that is the same thing what happened when you were giving the Chick-fil-A example, but it's just LGBT versus not. And if we take that and just put masculine and feminine, let's say Chick-fil-A were to a man's man who's Chick-fil-A, something like that. The backlash they'd get is from a group of people who fear that awakening. If you picture a relationship where, okay, my husband isn't the most masculine man, but it works because I'm genuinely in control of the situation. I know I'm more valuable than him. He thinks I'm more valuable than him, and it makes things easier. Whereas when that's flipped, it's hard to control a man that knows his value. And if you think that is not a motivation, you are very naive, right? Even in men wanting to control women, like that control aspect in humans are always there. And so it's like, okay, if I'm a woman, which one would I rather? If I've never experienced positive masculine, like positive strong masculine, like
I'd rather be in control.
exactly. And so if your point of reference throughout your whole life is mom saying you don't need no man because of blah blah blah, or seeing mom go through blah blah blah, I'd be damned if I'm finna get led by, because you don't know if that's even a reality or so rare that. What if I trust him and then I get the same reaction or the same result mom's got or my auntie got with that one guy or uncle? You know what I'm saying? And so there have been so many negative masculine experiences that are funneling this masculinize yourself so that you're always on your own square, so you have to depend on. It's a protection defense mechanism, and fundamentally that only thing that can fix that is that reawakening in the masculine, but not in a destructive shooting up the motherfucking club way. It's from a place of I understand my value, but I also understand the value of my woman. And it's not about control and domination in just an insecure, immature way. It's I understand my role, I'll die on that, but I don't undervalue her and abuse that power. And I think that power abuse is just what motivates all of us. We can't risk them getting back into control, meaning men, because remember what happened the last eons of men being in charge. Let's try not to have that shit happen again.
I lean toward two things. One, I lean toward that it's not accidental any of this. That there is we're being led down a particular path
For sure.
by whatever dark room, back room people are doing it. That is guiding the media and our society to put us, hey, we have to get rid of slavery, so why don't we just enslave everybody? Because most of these people, white, black, it don't matter, we know better for them, so they're going to put us all in these corporate boxes, and that's where we live. So I absolutely believe that there's a guiding principle to, not principle, but guiding entity to all of this. But going back, I don't know a lot about Andrew Tate. What I do know is that he was arrested for whatever sex trafficking thing he was arrested for. It sounds like you're leaning toward him being set up in that. Is that what you're saying? Like, I don't know the story of it.
Well, the current, from my understanding, there was no evidence for a year. So when you're guilty of something, there's usually evidence of some kind.
He was in
When they
jail.
arrest you.
Right.
Well, he was in jail for 6 months. No charges were pressed. He got released. Has been out on
House arrest or something.
House arrest for I don't know, the last month or two, and they just pressed charges. Charges were filed or whatever. Officially, I think in the last 2 weeks.
Right. And now it's going to be probably years of progress. This court.
Okay.
Okay. But I'm saying if somebody was doing something like
You're
human
thinking it's
traffic-
a Jeffrey Epstein kind of thing where...
Well, if it was, it wouldn't be this hard to find evidence. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have access to everything.
Yeah.
You think, because he didn't have any charge pressed for 6 months, but it was jail. Well, it wasn't. He was in the jail for 3 months, but they've known about. Even they have text messages of women saying we're about to set them up, like, you know what I'm saying. But the essential, the basis of the case, from my understanding, is that there's no evidence, but we're still going to press charges. If evidence was there, that motherfucker would be in a dungeon.
Why would they press charges if there's no evidence?
Because,
Keeping him off.
yeah,
But you're only going to keep them off for so long.
really. I mean, what's stopping them from doing that?
Lot of
What's
red tape.
really stopping them? Who's going to check them?
The first 6 months was without charges. Now they filed charges. Like, it can all be part of the process, just chess moves. All right, well, first you put this, that chills him
Right.
for 6 months. Okay, now you do this. Now we got him for 2 years.
What's
now
the-
we actually bring him to the
Yeah,
case.
like,
the whole
real
world is
question.
completely different now.
Real question. Who's going to check them? And that's really what the conversation is about. We don't know who. It's not like you can go, well, we can talk to this guy and hold him accountable. When you're at the top of the totem pole, who's going to check you? And if I want you in jail,
So you think
Well,
this same cabal is responsible for...
I can't explain how this is legally possible.
Okay.
No evidence and being.
I have no idea.
But I'm
like,
giving
I
you
know
an
nothing,
example
but yeah.
of anybody
Yeah.
that principle falls under. Like, no.
To me, you
evidence.
telling me that is like, okay, I need to dig further because it doesn't make sense that there's no evidence in that
That's what's been there.
he was charged.
Yeah, I mean, if
Or that he was held for so long.
if there was evidence
In the United States?
no, it was in Romania.
Man.
Oh man,
Oh,
they'd love to
okay.
get him here. But I think from a standpoint of, because I align with reality, and as far as I can tell, truth as far as I can tell, and so I listen to a person. I wouldn't call myself a Tate fan or a Jordan fan or any fan of anything. If I listen to what they're saying and I pressure tested them like they're speaking accurately, then I'll go, okay. So I don't give a fuck about what anybody else is talking about. Well, blah, blah, blah. That has nothing to do with the person it's talking about. So whether it's a fucking Trump or Biden, I don't give a fuck if the things that they were saying at that point in time, not meaning everything they say, but if it's when I'm listening to that particular thing, like what are you refuting about the person? Oh, they're this person as a whole. I'm like, all right, let me hear what they're saying. And I'll listen for myself and conclude, okay, is that accurate or not? But I'm not finna go, well, I heard on a headline that, firstly, I mean, if you at this point think headlines are factual, I mean,
You might as well be looking at thumbnails on YouTube.
I admire,
Which is what most people do.
right? And I admire your ability to be this coddled and naive and still have a productive life. But the reality is, that's the fundamental question, who's gonna check him? And he's one man, which is what, we kind of touched on earlier about what we were discussing. The one man shows can't take this thing down. Ain't no Neos out here. Like,
is he one man though?
Yeah. I mean, in no sense, if they take Tate out, that is that.
Meaning, like, it's not a coalition. Like, okay, so there's Red Pill, Manosphere, so many entertainers. There are dozens of people, I only say entertainers, that is the majority, but educators, entertainers, people in this space of this conversation. Because Tate's a businessman. He's an athlete.
Right.
He's not like the Messiah bringing a message or anything. But the context, you take out Tate, nothing happens to Jordan Peterson. You take out Joe Rogan, like all those other voices. If the Manosphere was like an official, we the Manosphere organization, like the United Nations type shit. Oh, you can't just go in and ironically, people are mysteriously having deaths and bankruptcies and you watch a systematic takedown of something that's completely different from one person. Kevin Samuels had a heart attack. Not to be conclusive, the context is it's one person can be taken out. One message that speaks to someone, especially waking up that masculine conversation. Pac.
I mean,
theatrics don't stop. Like, there's all kinds of things that can happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if that mind is powerful enough, that's a rare thing.
I love that quote. Fucking Pac said that. I may not change the world, but you can damn sure believe I'll spark the mind that does one day. That's raw fucking masculine energy. Because how do you control that shit? They just said something. They're moving something away from our benefits, our profits, our systems, our values, whatever that. And ultimately, the funny part is, that is, we say, what feminine or society relies to, feminine energy relies to the big brother authority of call a man. That's the same, all right. This is then the us. Watch what you say or think before you become them.
Right.
That's what you're saying as an individual. Yeah, there's a lot of conversations to that, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist per se.
It's not even. It
sounds like you are.
What he said is truth. I mean, especially at an individual level. Fucking Ice Cube has got a message out that's trending right now talking about the club kind of. There's always a narrative of like authority or power that be to what you're speaking to. When truth is allowed to be set free, when truth is truth, it doesn't matter who it's coming from. If it opposes the overall system, the bigger structure, like we are on somebody's soil. In Romania, Tate has to follow what Romania says. In the U.S., you got to follow what the U.S. says. It's a free world. You can go wherever you can be. You're on somebody's land. That's somebody's system. It's just the truth.
You're in the house.
What the fuck you want? Exactly. So to that context, that I don't know, established masculine, grandfathered masculine, Pax Americana or Pax Romania, peace the American way, peace the Romanian way. Like that's the influence of. You don't just buck the system unless you got another planet you can get to. They already got
or you have another military.
They're working on it.
Exactly.
You have to come with real military might, not just in a literal physical military, but that level of connections in high places that it's more of a coalition than an individual.
Like old boy in Russia.
Right.
Who's still back down.
You still who?
He's still back down.
You talking about Putin?
No, what was his name? One of Putin's generals just last week tried to do a coup against him, started marching toward the Kremlin. And then a couple of days later turned around and was like, okay, they made a deal with Putin. He was going to Belarus and his people were supposed to go back, but there's a lot of rumors and what's going on. But somebody tried to put a coup against Putin the last few days.
Oh,
Catch up on the news.
Yeah. Well, in all this, it's like fundamentally there's going to come a point where we're talking about where individuals are going to just have to be like, I'm done not having a spine. Fuck the consequence. That's really what we were discussing, right? It's like, what now? Right? It's marketing. That's not stopping. So there's going to be a pendulum swing to the other direction. There's going to be a critical point where it's going to start swaying. And that's every time ever in history. That's always happened. When nothing ever goes all the way to the other side and stays. That's unnatural. So there's, I don't know what that swing's going to look like, and if it's even going to be in our lifetime. But
a handmaid's tale. That's basically what a handmaid's tale is: a pendulum swinging the other way.
Mm-hmm. Whether it be in our lifetime or not, or we spark the future minds that will do that on the Grown Man's Shits podcast. But
I think it has the capacity because everything accelerates in our lifetime, or the span of our lifetime. What we're talking about, the feminist movement, everything, 50, 60 years. Now it's more than magazines influence. It's literally apps. So everything like antes up the next, if that makes sense. Earlier we talked about masculine's influence, or all the things that men have done, and I think that's the world of it, because to get to this point, it was primarily men, and there was that shadow side to it that didn't work. Right. Swing it back 50, 60 years inside the technological age, and you've got the point where Rihanna's on the Vogue cover, the diaper stance is exactly like the woman. So now, again, technology, crypto, whatever the next 5-10 years of things that advance, as it does sway back, it you can't have light without the dark. So the sway is not just going to sway in perfectly, all right, now we're here, like human be human, life be life, and it's going to keep, all right, sway back. It's just the cycles of everything. So I think it actually could be, if it took 50 or 60 for the last, might be 5 or 10 years. I mean, in our time, just being born, gay was the first something different. Now there's half of the alphabet to it with I mean, just the facts of it, but it's expanded that much. When I was born, well, whether or not it be censored, fag, queer, all the things that just grew up indoctrinated, that's a funny word because of this. Now it's a consciously aware, like that's the rapid development of the technology brings. Messages, movements, thought can go so much faster. So I do think the swing would come definitely in our lifetime, if global warming and the old big shit is not a problem.
Right, that part.
That happens and we start back over in a different kind of reset.
But it kind of to the Kevin Samuels, Tate, Peterson, all these things. What I was saying to Dwayne earlier is, because if you think about it, like if we're all at this table and we are all, very wealthy, influential men, and we have whatever businesses, because women drive most of the economy spending wise.
Facts.
Right. So that ties back into the, well, why wouldn't I empower the spenders? Right. And even better, disempower the only thing that could check their spending. Right. And if I'm a wealthy businessman, I already know I'm beyond the law. You know what I'm saying? I am in the multiple billions. The
bunkers, the spaceships, there's nothing you can't get out of.
I am way above the law. So as I'm looking at the situations, I go, okay. This guy over here called Lewis is empowering men, and okay, he's a little bug, whatever, let him have his little whatever. Okay, it's been a year, he's starting to gain some traction. I heard his name in a circle of mine the other day. Okay, I've been hearing his name in a couple circles, Sales are down and the young men in the schools are, this is a problem. If I leave him unchecked for another 10 years for his lifetime.
Lewis in 32, what the fuck is this? Let's shut this shit.
Right. If I leave him unchecked his lifetime and him sparking more of himself, and that's really the thing. It's not just the Lewis, it's the Lewises he'll recreate. And that's an issue. If something unfortunate were to happen. Right. Because what is your incentive to leave Lewis unchecked? Like, it's a free country. Yeah, he's fucking with my money and control and status.
And how hard it is it to take Lewis out?
I mean, but it's all about freedom and rights, and you're allowed to have free speech, and even if that messes with my money, that's just how things are. Right. There's very little incentive for that to actually be the case.
Well, there's freedoms all around, because they have the freedom that they can get away with it to take your ass out.
This is just the nature of the nature. animal, sometimes you gotta take out animals. And if that's the level, because you'd have to be very naive, as I said, to think that is impossible to have been the case. Like, that is impossible. There's no way people think like that. Really, people think like that who are broke.
Mm-hmm.
You think motherfuckers with all the control in the world is just gonna let Lewis come and fuck all that up?
It's what's right.
It's what's right, because it's all about the best man wins. And if Lewis is better than I am, open to leaving my lifestyle and him hitting my profits and me having less control and influence, you're crazy. So,
because people at that level have been bred for generations to have a certain level of control and a particular mindset of nobody else matters except me.
And at best, you get the first opportunity to be brought in. See if you can play along. If there's something to benefit, let's partner. Let's do this. Don't play the game to that point. Yeah, watch over your shoulder.
Which is where Tate's at, Peterson's at. They're uncompromising. Because he's mentioned, I've been tried to, got calls, invited to islands, and you know, and so that is real. Like, if you think that everything the average person sees is all there is, very naive. Very naive. And humans, by their nature, like you were talking about the chains earlier, like, once we're status-driven creatures, like, it's rare humans are okay with being the lowest status person amongst everyone else. So if I have the option, they want status, but status in of itself gets boring if I'm not getting access to things that somebody that is not on my status gets access to. So that's why I have a Rolls. I don't need Rolls. Does not get me there faster, you know, technically, but with the speed limits and, you know, like, it's not really about getting there faster. It's about, I need a physical display of my status above you. Right?
Opulence.
Right. My watch, yes, it's cost $70,000. Is it worth $70,000? Probably not. But I need you to know we're not the same. Not in like a malicious way, but it's just in us to need to. We're not the same. I'm working hard. I'm doing this. I get access to benefits you don't because I have my status. So what does that look like at the highest of high, right? When I can buy a yacht. Do you think the behaviors and cravings of somebody is just, man, I can go to Fiji. I could buy Fiji. You know what I mean? It's a different level of appetite that comes with that kind of access. So what would a person that can buy Fiji crave? And you get an Epstein Island. You know what I'm saying? There is, what else is there? Yeah, I can get a prostitute that's my age or of age, but cravings and appetites are very different the more access a person gets.
I want the forbidden because I can get the forbidden, so.
That's truly a paradigm not many people, and that's actually a good flip. That's a paradigm I say not many people take on. Even that, what I heard in that, you know, I think Tony Robbins has a island in Fiji, like he's bought the resort and everything. And I was just thinking there is and he's not even necessarily that high in like a pecking order, but the context of like you can buy Earth, like you're that level of power where there's not much you can't do, can't access, like that. Really, you don't get to experience that unless you go achieve it. But the context of actually having that access, it would only naturally human crave. Like, what more? What next? Because if you're broke, it's the same thing.
Right.
You want to
The money level is not a motivation anymore. So, but humans always have to keep striving for something. So what else is, when the money game ends, where you're so rich it's not even funny. What's another yacht? Right. What's another yacht? What's another $1 billion business? What is it? So what are you craving at that point to not?
Because you need something to always. If you've gotten to that level, you're needing something that's always pushing you.
So you know, I wouldn't be shocked to hear all kinds of. If we even scale it down beyond money and just go really far in the past, when the church had very big influence, right? If you're a minister, if you're whatever, then most people can't even fucking read. The level of power you have from a context of that is, that's why you hear all that dark stuff behind the scenes, the touching of young boys and da 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 da. And so why has that always been a fucking thing? Why is it like, oh, that was an era of weirdness and
right
it's
now
literally always been there? Why? are priests just innately attracted to young boys? Like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, what is up with that? So there is just way more to things than meets the eye, but you know, it's kind of like, okay, all that is cool and all, but what the fuck am I finna do? You know?
What are we gonna create in
right
the sphere we have?
Right, without fucking being a one-man army trying to, you know, but that's pretty much as far as that marketing coming full circle. It's like, I don't think this is a solution. I don't think this is a one man stands up and, well, everybody is okay. Everybody's unindoctrinated, and you know, we're all awakened. And
I wonder if it's like if there is an ultimate chess move. I feel like it's larger. There's at some level where it's larger than, like you're speaking to, any entity or association, just something that can prevent everything. What is the level of finesse it would take to work your way within the system?
right.
Would you give up? Would you yield? Would you truly stand by or accomplish standing on your square? And or, I guess, because my people is power, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what slavery, whatever the institution is, there's a level of swaying, I think, just universally, the balance of
right.
everything. Okay, we can no longer let this shit go, and it does become an overcoming. Is that something even like on that level, or it may not look like a swaying of masculine energy, maybe it looks like a swaying of social elitism, and
right.
we finally get rid of billionaires and still have the impoverished, you know, hungry and all that. Yeah, it's just one of those conundrums because it's so big, and to what we're talking about, that craving, that's a level that the average person doesn't even begin to think of. But truly, at least energetically, the masculine conversation is always about the betterment of others, the leadership of others. So it's going to be this is better for the fucking world movement that makes a difference. And it shakes up, I feel like, so much of society right now is still governed by the old guard. Like they say, there's corruption in the United Nations. Whatever's going on with the countries, war, politics, at those highest levels, it's like we're still running on an old program that doesn't match what society and cultures are.
Who's going to check you?
Exactly, and it has to sway back even bigger. There's gonna really be on some Braveheart type shit.
Yeah, we'll check something like that.
But then, who do you fight?
That's still always been
historically. Historically, the king was always a target. The king or queen was always a target.
Well, we
no longer have an obvious target.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's even that's questionable. You're right in the. Let's say we switch presidents, right? And completely. We assume that's the.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've never assumed that the president held the power.
Well, not in just the individual president of the United States per se, but the presidents of things.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the kings, more or less, take out a president. It's so far beyond an individual. At this point, yes. Right. So it's not even, that's why you're saying who is, it's almost a what. You know what I mean?
The money, and I don't mean money, I guess it'd be resources. Wherever the power is, that's what controls things.
Right. And power at that point isn't even money. I mean, it can't be money.
It's not money, because money no longer has any meaning at that level.
Right. What are you going to do? Send me money?
Yeah. It's like I can buy an island. What am I going to do
with the money?
Right.
I'm never going broke for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? There's
all my grandkids' lives.
Literally, like, so we print the stuff. What are you gonna give me? You know what I'm saying? So it is a conversation. It's one of those that I don't typically have, but I've thought these things through and just asked questions like the fundamental one. Like, if I was at that level, what? Like, who's gonna check me? Like for real.
There is no check and balance, but there never has been. It's just that there's no check and balance, but there's also no obvious target.
Which is smart.
Oh yeah, good.
You're still human at the end of the day. You're not invincible.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm controlling the world invisibly, that's the best strategy.
Yeah.
You can never stop me. If you even don't think I exist, that's even better. Right? So it's one of those. I think that's where conspiracy, those who are into it, really go down that rabbit hole of how much don't we know.
But the reality is, there's nothing at the end of that hole for an individual except madness.
For sure. If you're not going to do nothing with let's say you.
There's nothing you can do. So, you know, there's nothing the three of us at this table can do
as individuals
that will, even as the three of us.
Well,
that will affect
literally the three of us in like right now.
Right now, there's nothing the three of us can do that will have any effect on
any of that.
The cabal.
Any of that. Not in and of itself. But I always think about, something that always way back maybe 22. I find that in the States, the police brutality thing. I remember having a convo when I was at Nordstrom, and there was two people around my age, and I was like 23. They're like, I don't think it's ever gonna stop. I don't think it's ever gonna stop. This is before Floyd. It's before COVID. This is 2020, but before all that. And I was thinking, so, what's the point of thinking that? What if it never stops? I mean, that's damn sure not. What use is thinking that? Let's assume if I have two options, I assume it will and I assume it won't. If I assume it won't, of what good is that? If I assume it will and it never does, then there's progress. And what I always thought was man, you would have been one of the slaves who said that.
It's just the way it is.
You know what I'm saying? When my motherfucker came, I'm tired of this shit, bro. You're like, it's never gonna change. And it did. You know what I mean? For slavery to change is insane. You know, considering it makes...
It was embedded and...
You know what I mean? That's an insane thing to top it.
Well, the advantage slavery had in its ending is it had an obvious target.
Well, meaning in the people who had the power to keep slaves, there's no incentive to change that.
Oh, correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
So fact that the pendulum swung...
But they were outnumbered by people who had them as a target.
Had what as a target?
You had 100 slaves and a handful of slave owners. 100 enslaved and a handful of enslavers.
But the body is not what they enslaved.
Agreed. But my point is, it was easier for us to get out of slavery than it is for us to get out of whatever this is we're in now.
Well, we're way more humans than controllers still. But most people are mentally enslaved.
Exactly.
Right.
We don't know that. Most of us don't believe there is a controller.
Right.
And we can't identify them even if we know.
Right. And I'm not saying what I'm saying is that the same mental framing that got somebody out of... Because we're saying that in this context, but imagine you're a slave back in the day. Right? There is no social motherfucking... You don't know what the fuck is outside of that damn plantation. You've been in that motherfucker forever.
Still in selfies in the chains.
You know what I'm saying? You're really changing that context, and then you not only think you're going to somehow not be a slave any longer, but when you leave this fucking fence that you've never left, you're going to survive. Yep. You know what I'm saying? The most...
And even if you think that, you have to convince me to think that, and Dwayne to think that. And historically, one of us is a bitch.
I never could tell the master. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, that still occurs today. I mean,
it still occurs today.
Try convincing a regular person that they have more potential than it. What are you talking about, man? Conspiracy, right? But I say, going back to that, I always go whenever there's a mental frame of this seems unconquerable. You know, it's just a new level of the same shit that's happened throughout all of history. Rome was a thing. You know what I mean? And we go, well, it's harder to... We gotta understand, there was no way to connect with other... you're here. And so the idea of even marching in a direction is not, oh, let me put the GPS in, I'll just shut my brain off when I get there. Like, you might not ever come back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, all of you. And we don't know when you're coming back. We don't know where you are. You know what I mean? Like, you marched south and, you know, that's a very different reality. And then somehow toppling something that had that level of world dominance is insane.
Yeah.
So I do know anything can. There is a universal pendulum swing. And it seems as if eventually humans go to this control phase of, and then it swings back, and then it swings back, and then it swings back. I don't know what in the final analysis we're supposed to be doing here. But if we look all throughout history, all of this has happened multiple times throughout history. And now it's more advanced because of the technology. It's not man-to-man power. So a motherfucker sends a drone, and that's, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it's different now. So it's like, I don't know how the solution, but if a slave who's never left a plantation could have the thought that one day I'll be a free man, enough to where, and then other people who had the slavery powers wanted that as well. Now, there are reasons, we can get into that, but at the end of the day, we're not in plantations, even though, logically speaking, those people had no reason to give up their power.
We're not even in the fields anymore. And I was thinking story of grandmother? Somebody in the last 75 years. And if you were born in this country, you probably have a story of somebody in your family who left the family and you never heard from him again. They're like, okay, yeah, he went up north. We don't know what happened to him. You know? You just don't know what happened to him.
How could you
know? He might not have ever made
that shit.
He might not have made it. He might have made it. You have no idea.
And you can never know. And that's
crazy.
crazy.
You can never know.
That's crazy, isn't it? Like, you can it's not like, oh, well, we trace things.
Short of everybody in the country doing a DNA test. And even then...
so old, so, you know, there's just, and so there's so much unknown. Like, looking back to that time, we're so connected now that you forget sometimes. Phones are very new.
Yes.
Internet, very new. Like, connection, us knowing each other, and we're not in the same city. The planet being able to watch this, like, the entire planet can watch this. Isn't that crazy?
Even that, not even getting the still expanded beyond that, the second hand, he's telling us about a coup going over in Russia. Like, that information reaching across the other side of the world.
Right.
You just word of mouth tell us.
Quickly.
A few days ago, over in Russia there's a fucking coup.
You don't even know what Russia looks like.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Like, it's cold.
Russia
That's all I
is
got.
a mental idea. You know what I mean? And so it's like, but we feel planetary. Like, when I think about China, I don't think about China as a place I've never been. I've never gone anywhere near China.
But we can relate to China.
It's our neighbor.
We think of it in like, we are envisioning Asian people, and we're envisioning this town from a TV.
We're envisioning the food they eat.
Literally. It's like, I hope the fucking Sesame's is... You know, like,
whatever stereotype we have going on, whether it's Wuhan or martial arts or fried rice, it's like, whatever your stereotype is, it's like, if you've never been there, you still have an idea of what it is.
And so we think planetary, which is new as fuck.
Yep.
Like, motherfuckers didn't even think beyond the plantation. Plantationary. That's how far they thought.
50 years ago, you could not drive across the country. People did not drive across the country. You know?
On your maps.
I was going to say 50 years ago, because we drove across the country when I was a kid. But you had maps, first of all.
Well, that's not even
I was telling somebody
convenient.
about AAA, and when my kids were young, I would go to AAA and get a book of tickets. We drove from, where was it? From LA to Seattle. And I stopped by AAA, got a book of what my maps and routes and places to stop, and there were AAAs along the way, and, you know.
Different world.
It was a totally different world. I had no idea how long that trip was going to take, you know?
Which is a crazy thing to think today. 13-hour drive, okay. Like,
and you know exactly how many hours to the minute.
Literally to the
and where the
time.
traffic is.
Let's slow down up ahead, take this next exit to
Yeah.
Not only are we planetary, but but our brain concept, like when you think of, okay, I'm going to, like we don't even, this is like really radical shit. We don't even think in distance. We think in time.
That's yeah, you're right.
It's about, we don't say it's 20 miles away. We say it's 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
And that's only because we don't have to conceptualize. We know when we put it in the computer, it tells us how it estimates what time we're in. So it doesn't tell us. We don't look at the miles. Who gives a fuck? How long is it gonna take me? Because I'm not even paying attention. I'm just listening. Turn left as I'm talking to my homeboy in the car. Like
we don't know if it's 20 miles or 60 kilometers.
Who gives a fuck? We know we're gonna get there if the GPS is directing us. So it's like, what else is gonna be the case like that? You know, it's the Neuralink, the damn fucking blockchain, the metaverse. You know what I mean? Like there is a completely AI. Like there's so much that's going into the masculine and feminine conversation is going to be on a whole different scale. Like it's going to be a very different context than, you know, the dude not taking out the trash, and like it's going to be very different at that point. And
it will be very different. I asked the question not too long ago.
I'm gonna say for time, what's the closing thoughts?
Oh, are we at time?
9.
Oh yeah, it's 9. Yeah, you're right.
But go ahead.
You're asking the question.
Why we didn't make it to the moon? Like in the 60s, everybody was pushing to get to the moon. We made it to the moon and then stopped. You know, in the 70s and 80s, there were TV shows about how we were going to have colonies on the moon by 1999. And here it is, literally 60 years later, or almost 60 years later, and
not a lick.
We haven't set foot on the moon in 50 years.
As far as you know, right?
As far as we know, right. You know, there's been no public push to the moon. Why is that? Like, what's going on there? Does something come down and say, hey, don't go to the moon? Are we really up there? And, you know.
I say, if you come back, you might not go back.
Right.
No control.
So but questions are the ultimate superpower.
The point I was going to make is, does it really just boil down to somebody said, there's no money in it for us, so we're going to focus it on here. You know?
That doesn't make too much sense to me. For a lot of reasons. Because, I mean, what was the money in doing it the first time? Because you didn't even know if you were going to go.
There was a governmental push to do it because we were in the Cold War. There was a political reason to do it. That was the motivation. That's why we went in the 60s. Because we were still on a World War II high. And we were in a Cold War with Russia, and we didn't want Russia to get there before us because whoever got there first would claim the land.
As if you can police something like that.
Right.
Send the space police to arrest them. This is
exactly.
That's a whole other rabbit hole, as you said, but one that has no real payoff, even if we get to the bottom of it. So,
to end, what I would say is, grown man shit, we don't know shit.
You don't know what you don't know.